David, your organisation calls for a fee for service, no commission approach to risk insurance advice. Many Australians, says Aaron, will not pay $7 to see a GP. Do you remember that political conversation last year? In addition to their actual premiums they pay for their life insurance policies, what do you think mums and dads will pay for the advice of a risk insurance advisor?
Thanks for having me first, and Aaron, thanks very much for inviting me. We are not great in the consumer movement of inviting industry to our conferences, so I do really appreciate being here and having the opportunity to say something and have probably everyone in the room disagree with me. Hopefully it'll be a good conversation though. After that politeness, I'm going to politely disagree with the premise of your question, Aaron. People are paying for their advice now. They're paying for it through a commission. So an insurer is paying a commission to an advisor. The consumer then repays that over time in instalments through their insurance premiums. So, and I had a great conversation this morning with Phil Anderson. He basically sold me life insurance. Thanks for that. A great sales pitch for the value of advice. The insurance people get is better. It's cheaper in the long run. So will people pay for the advice? Yes, I think they will. If people know that by getting advice they're getting a better product, they have better peace of mind, that advice, although it's a cost to them, saves them money in the long run, well, yeah, I think they'll pay for it. The idea of shifting the cost of advice from a commission to a fee, I think the fear is that, you know, put that fee in front of people and it'll scare them off getting advice. Well, I think that's a marketing challenge more than anything. But I mean, people buy insurance itself, which is also something that they have to pay for. They have to shell out a bunch of money, knowing that investment, if you want to see it that way, may never pay off. But people think, you know, people know that they need it. They're willing to put the money down, and they know that in the long run they're better off for having it. I think the marketing, I think the sell for advice is exactly the same. If people think that money they put down for advice is going to leave them better off in the long run, if it's going to help them protect their income, protect their family, well, yes, I think they'll pay for it. I think they will pay for it. But how you sell that, I'm probably not the guy to ask. I think you need to talk to a marketing company.
Okay, we will. Just want to drill down a little bit more before we move on. Can I just quickly, a show of hands, how many of you attended the AFA Life Insurance Roadshow that was here in Melbourne on Monday? Just a quick show of hands, reasonable number. Part of that, and this is coming back to you, David, was an assessment of what an average cost of delivering life insurance advice may be, and it was broken down in terms of the activities and the cost associated with each of those activities. It's a piece of string, David, but give or take, an average cost of delivering life insurance advice might be $3,500. Are you okay, as a consumer voice, to tell our audience today that consumers will be happy to pay a fee of $3,500 for the life insurance advice solutions and services that our colleagues here will deliver?
I mean, as I said at the start, I think they're paying it now. So yes, and again, it's a sell. It's a marketing ask.
Okay.
If people think it's genuinely worth their while to get that advice, if they think they'll be better off in the long run, then yes, I think they will pay it. I'm not necessarily saying you've got to charge that $3,000 as soon as someone walks in the door. I think there has to be some kind of, I think there's room for discussion about how people pay it and how you make it affordable. And when I say affordable, I'm not just talking about the price itself, but how someone ends up paying it. People buy things all the time that they can't afford to pay for up front, right? There are a variety of different ways you can do it, but people do it. I think that's the challenge. So how do we get people to see the value in the product and see that they can actually afford it, and it's better off for them in the long run. That's the challenge.
All right, okay, Sam, I'm coming to you. I've written it, I've heard people say it. The issue with charging a fee for advice is either an issue in the mind of the consumer, or it's only an issue in the mind of the advisor who thinks it's not possible. What's your take on that, Sam? And do you have anything else you'd like to say in response to what David said so far?
Look, if you're talking about risk-only advice, I would dare say that none of my existing clients, if I positioned a fee of $3,500 to begin with, would have paid for that to get that advice, even if I showed them a reduction of, say, 20% in the premium. So whilst David is correct in that they're paying for it via the commission, if you were to re-engineer it and dial down the commission and position a $3,500 fee, I just simply don't think they would pay it. That's my opinion, and David's obviously got a different opinion. I don't see that, David, in a sense, you probably answered what I believe the intent of Aaron's question is. So, in relation to the GP co-payment and that debate, people would have seen that there's value in going and seeing a GP and getting your health checked, but there was vehement opposition to that $7.50 co-payment being charged. Same thing, you could have the best marketing spiel, the best CVP out there, but if you said to someone, come and buy an intangible product, but you know what, it's going to cost you $3,500 for me to prepare the advice documents in order for you to do that, I just don't see them doing it. Against a backdrop of an underinsurance crisis that we're already in the country. So, yeah, I'd put my life on it to say that it'll be a hard sell. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't know any, if many, risk advisors that are operating on a pure fee-for-service basis.
Yeah, that's true. There was comments we've received that the conversation about charging a fee for advice is, and the examples that are being used about how it's working most often relate to a holistic advice practice where it's not a pure life insurance conversation. So again to you, Sam, do you think the days of the pure risk advice proposition are numbered? Do you think, as has been articulated by other sort of consultants and commentators in the industry, that for the pure risk advisor, they may need to redefine what constitutes value when they're talking to their client, such as become involved more in estate planning advice or management, cash flow advice, budgeting, develop a portfolio or a series of services that includes life insurance advice, but is not exclusively life insurance advice?
It's a good question, because it's a question I've asked myself, being in business, and I've said, you know, is under the new landscape, is it still worthwhile? And I think the attendance in the room in itself is suggestive that the people that have invested their time are willing to look for ways to adapt and survive and thrive. So I think we'll come out the other end, and I think there is room for risk specialists, and Eddie will probably talk to that a little bit later on. But I think we will have to look for ways to become efficient, and more importantly, if we have to start positioning a fee in terms of a hybrid type model where we're charging a commission, but if that's not covering our costs, we've got to look to recoup our costs by way of charging a fee, then perhaps we need to get better at articulating our value, becoming better educated, etc. But I don't think it's the end of us. I think we'll get through it. And I think there's a need for us to get through it.
Okay.
So I was just saying that it's just so good to have David here, and I hope this is the start of a process of engagement, because we're on the same side. Because day in, day out, week in, week out, customers show their faith and trust in us because they take our advice. Now, as a senior executive of a major licensee for many, many years, we're one of the first organisations to disclose brokerage to clients. In the 17 years that I was CEO of that business, we never received one client customer complaint about the price that they paid. So I think this is a very important part. And what I'm seeing here is that this is a great opportunity for us to take David on a journey so he actually understands what we do. And I think that's what has been missed to a large extent, and I'm just so pleased to see David and ASIC on this stage so they can open up dialogue with the advice community, the real people who are looking after consumers.
Good point. So you think there's actually historically hasn't been enough dialogue, enough connect between the regulator, the consumer, the industry?
Absolutely not. And it's just been so evident in the process that we've just seen unfold in the last 8 months of how distant ASIC, the advice community and the consumer groups are. And at the end of the day, it's quite an oxymoron because we're all on the side of the consumer because we don't survive unless we provide that advice. And they're taking our advice in droves.